We'll get back into the football talk. We're doing a lot of hockey on this Tuesday. Clark Gillies won a Memorial Cup with the Regina Pats in 1974, 4 Stanley Cups with the New York Islanders, where he spent from 1974 to 1986. Clarky is with us today from his office in New York. Mr. Gillies, how are you?
I'm great, Rod. How you doing?
Very well.
Nice
Good.
and warm
Good.
down here.
Yeah. What is it? What is it down there?
I think it's about 45 degrees. It's been like summer here all winter, but we're having a nice spell and no snow in sight, so that's a good thing.
Well, I know that it does get cold down there, so I'm sure you're enjoying the warmth while you can. Clark, it's been far too long. I'll ask you this. Are you still keeping up with the Islanders as much as because when they moved to Brooklyn, you were kind of, you didn't get to every game, but now that they're back, how much are you sticking with your old club and following them?
Well, I must say I watch just about every game they play. I've been to the Coliseum. I've been to the Barclays Center a couple times this year, and to the Coliseum about 10 times. So I've seen quite a bit of them this year. It's kind of fun to go back to the old building. It's a little more convenient. I can drive there in about 25 minutes as opposed to an hour and 10-minute train ride. But I'm enjoying the team. They're playing pretty well. They had a tough streak there before Christmas. They played 7 games at 11 nights, which is a pretty tough grind. And they've got a nice rest here. They're off for about 10 days, and hopefully they'll come back loaded for bear and ready to go.
Tons of comments coming in from our viewers. These guys will have some. But a guy just asked me the other day about Jordan Eberle. They said he's having a quiet year with the Islanders. And I said, well, Ebs, he'll always be fine. But what's your assessment of the Regina kids' play this year?
He's played very well. He got off to a bit of a slow start. I've got my homework in front of me. I see he's got 7 goals at this point. But he got off to a pretty slow start. I like him. I think he's a great addition, a great player for this hockey team. Ever since he came over from Edmonton, he's got great hands and works well with Barzal. And they've moved them around a little bit. They kind of mixed up the lines from time to time. But Jordan's played very, very well, and it's nice to see him on our team.
Clark, I've heard several times you tell the story about ask as many Stanley Cups as you've won. I've heard you tell the story about having won a Memorial Cup and asking your teammates how many of them have actually won one, given the short window you have to win it and the amount of teams you're competing with across the country. How did that story go?
Well, it was kind of like when the guys were busting your chops in the locker room. Did you ever win anything before? Did you ever do this? Did you ever do that? And I said, hold on a second. I said, did any of you guys here ever win a Memorial Cup? And it shuts up most of the guys. And it's a pretty prestigious trophy, as you just mentioned. You've got a short window. Usually a junior team will build a team for that third year, and they take a shot at the Memorial Cup and then rebuild again for another 3 years. We had a pretty good hockey team. We went to the Western Final my rookie year with 13 rookies, with guys like Dennis Sobchuk and Greg Jolly and Mike Wanchuk. We had a pretty good hockey team. Almost made it to the Western Final and then on to the Memorial Cup, and then we got our ass kicked a little bit by Flin Flon the next year, and got a bit of a wake-up call. And then the final year of most of us were together for the full 3 years. We went on to win the Memorial Cup in Calgary. It was a great experience, and I would rate that right up there with winning the Stanley Cup. It's the ultimate in junior hockey, and I'm very proud to call myself a Memorial Cup champion for sure.
Clark, in sports in general, very rarely, the New England Patriots might be the exception, but you really don't see dynasties anymore, especially in a salary cap area. You definitely don't see it in the National Hockey League. And there's always that debate. Was it better back in the day when a Montreal Canadiens or a New York Islanders or a Edmonton Oilers team would win 3 or 4 years in a row, and you'd have those dynasties where they almost became like the enemy because they were so good? Is it better that way, or is it better when literally you hit a reboot every year and you've got 10 teams that could win it? Do you have an opinion on that, having been on a dynasty team? Like, what do you think is better for the game?
Well, I'd be crazy if I told you it wasn't fun winning 4 years in a row.
Fair enough. Maybe the wrong guy to ask.
Yeah, and losing in the finals in the fifth year, but it does. There's a lot of parity in the league right now, and a lot of it has been created by free agency. A team will go on and win the Stanley Cup, and there's usually 2 or 3 guys on that team that are in some sort of free agent situation, and they get plucked off pretty quickly. So it's tough to keep your team together. Back in the days of the Montreal Canadiens and us and Edmonton, for that matter, you weren't going anywhere. You had a chance to win a Stanley Cup, you were staying. And free agency was a little bit different, of course, but loyalty to your team was important back then, and certainly winning was everything. I'm not even sure. Bill Torrey used to keep a lot of things pretty quiet back in those days. I'm not even sure if somebody was offering me a lot more money or not, or my agent, whatever. But I usually signed a 5-year contract, and I was loyal to the Islanders and kept my word and played whatever the length of the contract was. So, but again, when you're winning, you're not in a big hurry to go anywhere else. But as I said, it's different now. The players get thrown a lot of money at them, and it's tough to say no.
Clark Gillies with us today. Johnny Yatridis writes in from Moose Jaw from the Mad Greek. He says, Moose Jaw royalty right here on the show. So Moose Jaw claiming him along with Pats and Islanders royalty. And I'll get to these other questions, Clark, but the last time I was with you guys, Brian Trottier was jumping up and down. He was so mad about that 5th straight finals. He says the NHL screwed the Islanders because they didn't want him winning a 5th straight Stanley Cup and beating the Habs record. Is Brian over it finally, or do we got to get him into counseling? Because it seems like this is something that keeps him up at night.
By the way, I'm not over it either. So if you want to get me really riled up, bring that up. And it's just, it's something that happened, and I've never really got an explanation. They switched the format, which had been the same way for 100 years. 2 games at home, 2 games away, 1-1-1. And all of a sudden, before the finals started in 1984, we're going to change it. We're going to do 2 games, 3 games, 2 games. And we were like, what? I mean, that didn't make any sense to us. And then they kept it. I looked it up because I wanted to make sure I had this right, because I talk about it all the time. They kept it that way the following year and then switched it back 2 years later. And since then, it's been 2-2, 1-1-1. So if you tell me there wasn't something going on to make sure that the Montreal Canadiens were the only team that won 5 in a row, I'd beg to argue that point. So I haven't gotten over it. Trotch hasn't gotten over it, and I don't think any guy in our hockey team will ever get over it, thinking that somebody tried to pull a fast one on us. And it works. Unfortunately, it works.
Sorry to pick at a scab, Clark. It's only been 35 years.
I bleed. I still bleed pretty heavy when you pick that scab, too.
Clearly.
Well,
Go ahead, Kelly.
I saw a video of you and Brian Trottier singing Kenny Rogers' The Gambler from a couple of years ago. I had no idea that he could play the guitar, and I had no idea how good a singer you were. So I'm thinking that when you guys get in these moments of frustration and you feel like you're ready to, punch somebody in the face, you guys should just FaceTime each other and get the guitar out and sing Kenny Rogers. That might help.
We do that. We do that a lot. We've got a whole repertoire now. I mean, Kenny Rogers. It's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we're going to be in, by the way, a little shameless plug here. We're going to be in Delisle, Saskatchewan. I think it's August 13th. So if you want to hear our full routine, you can come up to Delisle and see that. But,
it's funny.
Trotch and I have a lot of fun with that. We travel around everywhere. We happen to be going to Mario Lemieux's fantasy camp in Pittsburgh this week, and while we're there, we do a little entertainment. Theron Fleury will be there. He'll be singing along with us, and we've got 5 or 6 songs now that we do. We're just not a one-hit pony here.
One-hit wonders, yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing about that Delisle dinner. I'm telling all hockey teams, you want to do a sports dinner, do it in August. Because I was there last year. It's full of farmers. They're not in the field yet. It was Theo, Dennis Hull, and George Larocque, and it was hilarious. It was bursting at the seams. Who thinks of doing a hockey banquet in the summer? But it works. Gordy Archibald's watching in Nuevo Vallarta, Mexico, Clark, and he says, can you ask Clark how good an NHLer Denis Sobchuk would have been had he not signed in the WHA?
It's a great question. I've said that Denny made a bit of a quick decision going to the WHA. He got down there. I had a great time. It was similar to playing with Dennis and Mike Wanchuk was similar to playing with Brian Trottier and Mike Bossy. My role was to kind of go out there and keep people away from Dennis and keep people away from Mike. And Dennis kind of got, taken up by all the money that the WHA offered him, and I think he got beat up a little bit when he went there. Had he gone to the right situation in the National Hockey League, had someone like me or to skate around with him and kind of keep him out of trouble, I think he would have lasted longer. He was the top junior hockey player in Western Canada, or in Canada for that matter, when we won the Memorial Cup in '74, and he should have had a long, illustrious career in the National Hockey League. And I think had he chosen that road, he would have certainly done that. It's disappointing because he was a tremendous talent.
Well, they're saying between him and Bobby Orr, the 2 best juniors ever. And probably you can't find the right answer for that, but that's pretty good company. Conan in Calgary says, can you ask Clark if he ever considered signing with the Oilers when he was drafted in the WHA draft?
No, not really. When I was drafted by both the Islanders and the Oilers, you kind of think, well, let's see what the agent can do. Maybe they can play them both, play them back and forth and see, where we can get the most money from. But deep down, I was always anxious to go to the National Hockey League, and the Islanders represented a great opportunity for me. There was new franchise. They were keeping all their first-round draft picks, as Billy Harris was first, Dennis Buffin was second, and I was the third first pick. And so it created a great opportunity, as I said, for me to step right into the National Hockey League. And it was something that I had always dreamed about, playing in the NHL. So Edmonton, I gave it a thought, but not a serious thought. And then the Islanders came back money-wise and offered me a lot more than Edmonton did anyway. So it made the choice pretty simple.
How often did you and Brian Trottier talk about that 1974 playoff series, as eventful as it was? Tiger Williams in the stands, coming back from a 5-1 deficit after 2 periods. What a series that was.
We talk about it a lot. To be honest with you, the thing that we talk about the most is playing when we were playing in Swift Current, and Brian Trottier and Brian Back, 2 similar-sized fellas, hit me, the 2 of them at the same time. And as I was getting up off the ice, fairly groggy, I told Trotz, I said, if I ever catch you, I'm going to kill you, you little bastard. And we talk about that more often. But speaking of that series, Tiger, to this day, he still blames me for him getting in so much trouble. And I said, why are you blaming me? He said, well, you should have stopped me from going up in the stands waving my hockey stick. Well, how was I going to do that? You were already up there by the time I got there. So, we go back and reminisce about our junior days and playing against each other, and it's all in good fun, and we have fun with that.
One last one is our producer Clark, named after you. And he said that he had mentioned to you that he had met you in the bar. He was the bartender at the Hotel Saskatchewan. And Clark said, I'm sorry?
I said, Clark, that could cover a lot of different guys. I've been in a few bars myself.
I've met a lot of bartenders.
I I didn't want him to feel too bad. I said, "You're one of about 15,000 bartenders I've met in the last 25 years." So
Exactly. How does it feel? Do you know of any other kids named after you, Clark? That's got to be a nice tribute.
not really. No. I have a good friend that I grew up with in Moose Jaw, a fellow by the name of Clark Compton. He's up at Edmonton now. Clark spent a lot of time with us. He's Clark with an E, and I'm Clark without an E. So that's how we, differentiate ourselves from each other. But no, I don't know of too many kids that are named after me.
Yep. Well, for sure, it's an
Other
honor.
than Clark the bartender.
Clark the bartender. Clark
Producer.
Compton, I think Clark Compton's selling cars in Wetaskiwin is what I think he's doing. I still hear from him from time
He
to
is.
time. So, Clark, I'm so happy to hear that you're going to be up in this area, because I was going to say you're overdue for a visit. So we'll see you in Delisle. And anything else before we let you go?
No, just thanks for having me on, Rod. It's always nice to be talking to folks from back home. I played in Regina, but you are right. I am from Moose Jaw through and through. So I want to say hi to everybody there, and we'll see you in the summer when we're home.
Sounds good, Clark. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.